Joining us today is senior technical artist at Bethesda Game Studios, Paul Hormis. I'm your host, Kevin,
And I'm your co-host, Brian.
and you're now tuned in to Coder Conversations. Be sure to catch up with any previous episodes at coderconvos.com. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey, man. Yeah. Thanks for coming on tonight. We really appreciate you.
Yes, absolute pleasure to have you on. And just looking at your background, man, you've been doing some pretty big things in the arena of video gaming and 3D art in general. So, just to get things started off, can you give the audience a little bit about your background, and we'll really dive into your story after that.
I've been doing 3D basically for almost 4 years. I started in high school, believe it or not, and immediately ended up working at I was in an architectural drawing class, drafting class.
Right.
And there was a computer sitting in the room that nobody was using. And I'm like, what's that? And they're like, it's just CAD stuff. I'm like, what's that? Oh, I don't know. Go ahead and fart around with it. And so I had like a 3-hour break in my day. So I would just go to that class and I would just jump on that computer. And in a week, the guys that sold the computer to the school hired me. So I started doing drafting while I was in high school. And then as soon as 3D software started to hit like when AutoCAD went to 3D and with version 9, then they're like, hey, model this stuff up in 3D. I'm like, okay. And that's where it started. And from there, I went to 3D Studio, Autodesk Animator, and then 3D Studio DOS, and then 3D Studio Max. And that's all I've done for the past 35, 40 years.
Wow.
I've been anywhere from games to television to film. I've done a little bit of everything. Right now I'm in games because that's where I think the best stability is, the growth, the best creativity, where you can do things is right now.
Yeah. To create.
Games, I think a lot of studios, a lot of these big conglomerates are seeing, wow, these games are making way more money than our movies. It costs us $500 million to make this movie, and it makes $1 billion. So we made $500 million, whatever. I'm just making up numbers. But then you get a game that takes you 5 years to develop, takes you $300 million to make, but then it's generating money for 10 years.
For years.
Yeah. Depending on the game, like Warcraft, World of Warcraft, it's still generating money today. It's crazy.
Right.
There are other games like that like, the Diablo franchise and stuff like that. They're all.
Or like something like Call of Duty, Modern Warfare,
Battlefield. They're all.
Battlefield. Yeah, they're kind of like timeless games.
And people will play them and play them and play. So
forever.
Return on your investment over and over. So you make a movie, it's a one-off, boom, done. They're not all Avenger franchises. So and games is just more fun. Something we were discussing earlier is when you're working on a movie, depending on where you're sitting, you could be working on that movie for a year, and then everyone that you work with, you probably won't see anymore. Like I worked on 2012 back in 2009, and I'm still in touch with a lot of those people because we had an incredible crew and we really got along together, but it's kind of like an anomaly. They're not always like that. You work on a project and then you're done and you move on.
Right.
But in games, like we were just saying, it's a longer term thing. You're working on a game for 5 years. It comes out. You're supporting it for 2, 3, 4 years, and you're with those people much longer. You get to know them. They become your friends, your family. It's just a different vibe, not one that's better than the other, but, games is just, I find it to be more, it just lends itself to be more, building up a community at your studio.
Yeah.
Everybody gets to know each other. They play games together, and not just the game you're working on. Like somebody invited me to play D&D, and I'm like, sure, that sounds like fun. It has nothing to do with work, but we're playing a game together. We're commiserating and becoming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's basically it.
And that's like team building. You're building culture with your coworkers.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
So what would you say are like the key differences between working in the movie industry and the game industry, like just in terms of workflow and just everyday atmosphere?
Well, the assets are different. That's really different. Your setups, the actual stuff that you're working with. But aside from that, I think it's pretty common. They're kind of the same, in the way you work with people. It's just in games, I think you take a little bit more ownership on what you're working on. In film, it's like, okay, I need to do this nuclear explosion for this shot. But then that's the only part of that shot I'm touching. I'm making that explosion, I'm handing it off. Somebody else does their part and they put it together, blah, blah, blah. But in games, you can, you have a character and you build it, you rig it, you get it going, and you hand it off. Yes, but I think there's just more ownership in games because you're working on it longer. There's a lot of time to work on things in games. I think that kind of leads into something I think we'll talk about later on the union side, where as we've discussed, I've been around for a while, and I was in LA while they were trying to unionize effects artists there. And when you see a movie being made, every single part, every person that works on those movies is unionized. From the guy that's setting up the food to the guys doing the lighting to the actors and the directors. They're all unionized, except for VFX artists.
Wow.
and so you find that people get overworked. It's a crazy race to the bottom. I'm sick and tired of people and they're getting on their high horses. Practical looks so much better than CG. It's like, yeah, we'll pay the guys that do the CG the money they need to do the job and give them the time to do the job right. And you wouldn't be saying that.
Right.
But that'll never happen. And now all the jobs are gone. Everybody has had to leave LA and California because they need to go to Canada or London or wherever.
Right.
And we don't want that to happen to games. So right now we are negotiating at our studio. I'm on the bargaining committee for our union, and we're just trying to lay the groundwork for the rest of the industry and say, look, we work hard for a living. We want all the benefits that we should get. We're not kids anymore. I think a lot of the perception is, oh, it's just a bunch of kids working on a bunch of games. And I'm like, well, kids don't usually have kids. I have a kid. A lot of people I work with have kids. We have lives. We're adults. We're not little kids anymore. So we're not going to work for free. We're not going to, what I mean? A lot of that happens on the effects side. It's like, well, shot needs to get done. I go, yeah, but I've been here for 10 hours. It's got to get done.
Wow.
Okay, I guess I'll stay here another 4, and it's like, we can't have that. We're not going to let that happen to our industry.
Yeah, that's terrible.
That goes from everyone from coders to artists, everyone in between. You know what I mean?
So like in terms of actually producing effects or scenes, would you say the movie industry is like more meticulous? Like, okay, you're working on this explosion. You have to spend more time on this particular explosion than you would in a game because it's like, movies are more so emulating real life. The quality of that particular asset has to be higher versus
I don't think so. They have their own reasons to be, important. Like you're saying, yes, it needs to be pixel perfect in the camera view, right? But then if you think about it, the same thing in a game needs to look good from every angle because you can walk around it. It's not like, I'm seeing this.
Yeah.
It's like, well, what if I go here like this? It's like, you know what I mean? So it's not as high fidelity as in film, but it's got to look good from every angle. So it's kind of a little bit of a trade-off. And with the game engines the way they are now, and with the hardware that it is now, that gap is really closing. And it has been closing for a long time, but I think we've gotten to the point where it's some of the stuff I'm seeing in some of these engines, like Unreal and our engine, every engine, it looks amazing. I can walk up to something, get really close, and I see all the detail. And so it's a trade-off, but they both require a lot of work, but for completely different reasons. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think about a game like, kind of large world, Assassin's Creed? What do you think about that series?
Games, I really do like big open world games where you can kind of do whatever you want. One of the ones that I'm addicted to right now is Sniper Elite. And it's like, I can play the same level over and over and over again because I can go this way, I can go that way. There was this one game I played. It was this another sniper game. And I discovered one day that if you shot a grenade, it would explode. So I did one level where I just played the entire level where all I would do was shoot grenades. So guys would be sitting there talking, and you shoot their grenade, and 5 guys would die. That's the only thing I did the whole game is just do that. So I think they're fun, and as long as you have, I like to see more and more open games where you can kind of do whatever you want and solve the problem the way you want to solve it.
I think it's getting more popular. It's getting more popular to have, kind of like, well, I guess one of the first was GTA. To have a truly open world. You can go, like you said, you can go up the stuff. You get really close to it. You could see it better, stuff like that. That wasn't really in games before GTA, the first 3D version that they made.
Yeah. And people are still playing that game. All of them.
Yeah.
GTA games. They're still wildly popular.
Like San Andreas.
Yeah.
I think the first real open world game like that was Shenmue, like before GTA on Dreamcast.
Oh, yeah.
Dreamcast.
Yeah.
Like in terms of open world games versus linear games, are open world games a lot more difficult, or would you say the difficulty is about the same but in different ways?
I think the difficulty is the same in different ways. I mean, if you're going with a linear game, there's a lot you got to do to make it interesting, to make it not look like a linear game. Like you got to go that way, and you have to go that way, this way, in this way. What I mean?
Right.
So how do you make that fun? How do you make that exciting? How do you make that not, boring? It's like, I want to go that way. No. You want to go this way. So we got to make you want to go that way. In the open world, you just kind of got to make everything fun, kind of.
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason why you can go this particular way or that particular way. The fun part is actually building up all those reasons, I think,
And all the like side quests in these games, you could just kind of, you don't need to follow the main story. You could just go off and do these side quests and just have fun with that. And, you could do that for hours. So,
yeah.
How do you keep like open world games like visually interesting? Because I know like if you just randomly start placing assets, then it can kind of look, kind of bland versus, with linear games, you have to really be intentional about how you're placing assets. I know you have more freedom in open world. So how do you like utilize that freedom to really keep things spiced up visually?
I think there's a few ways that people do that. I think one of the things is, anybody can make something look cool, or make an environment. But what can you do to make people want to interact with that environment?
right.
Is there a book sitting over there that I should go look at? Is there an item over there that maybe I should go tweak with? If I duck and go over this way, is there something over there that I can look at? There are people that's all they do. They just want to explore the world and find out where all the little hidden little crevices are. And,
right.
Even Easter eggs, whatever, it's all about keeping people entertained. And it's fun for artists too, because, you can make a thing and hide it somewhere, and hope somebody finds it, I remember seeing something in the news a while back where somebody had hid something in a game that someone had just found after like 20 years. Wow. I don't remember what the details were, but it was like it was hidden for decades. And someone's like, "Hey, check this out." So, oh my God, so stuff like that. I think
it's awesome.
It's those little things that really like shine. Like when you're playing and you accidentally stumble across something, you're like, "Oh, this is so cool!" Keeps people engaged. And, and on the linear side, you got to do the same thing, but it's different because you're not quite. You can't just go explore everything. You can explore in the direction that you're allowed to go. So, my opinion.
So, like as they say, a picture is 1,000 words, and in games you're working alongside with writers. Do they give you like how much freedom do you have to go off path from like what they recommend, and like are you really able to add like little storytelling touches of your own with your art?
I think it's really collaborative. You have to work with everybody else. You can't just kind of go off on your own and say, I'm going to hide this over here. for lots of reasons. For one, respect. You want to respect everybody that's working on it. The other is legal. If I decide I want to hide an X-wing somewhere, I'm going to get in big trouble for that. Unless it's a Star Wars game. Or if I want to, you know what I'm saying. So, and of course, I would want to. I'm a Star Wars fan, but I would never do that. But you kind of got to work with it. You can't just go off on your own and do things because you will get in trouble. Everything is accounted for in a game. Every level is somebody made every level. Somebody's checked every level. So if you're hiding something because you think it's cool, that could cause lots of problems, lots of issues.
Right, and these games
point too. So like if you do something like that and you hide something like that, and then it crashes the level, and everyone's like, "What's making this crash?"
Yeah,
and then you find out there's a bowling ball. It's got 5,000 faces on it, or 50,000 faces. Like, oh, that's what's crashing it. Who put that bowling ball in there? Stuff like that.
Yeah, and what I think of is, games, I guess, is a little different than the tech industry. Games have a whole section devoted to testing, QA.
Correct. Yeah.
They have multiple positions in QA. I find that really interesting. Can you speak to that at all? I know that's not what you do, but
I mean, I've talked to, like, when I worked at Blizzard way back when I was in cinematics, I would go out and have a cigarette. I smoked back then, and I would hook up with a lot of the QA guys and girls, and we'd chit chat. And you've got to have that team because when you're playing it in the office, there's always things that you have set up that's not normal or whatever. They take it and they're running the game as if it's vanilla on a vanilla box, and they test everything, and it's tedious. It's a tough job. I couldn't do it. I actually interviewed for a QA position at Autodesk, and I went through an entire interview process and interviewed with, I think, 15 different people.
Wow.
I was moving from within the company. I was looking to go into QA. And in the end, I finally met with the QA boss, and she's like, "You're not going to like this job." And I'm like, "Really?" She's like, "No." And I'm like, "Okay." And then I ended up doing something else in the company, which was great. It worked out for me.
It's good to figure out what's going to work, what's going to gel. It's kind of like, me and Kev, we have different interests, but we both love doing this show. We love doing, podcasts and radio. It's just, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. And you got to have, you can't have development without somebody testing. And typically you don't want to test your own stuff. And having a QA department, that's their job. That's what they do. They focus on breaking things, testing things. Where is this going to fall apart? What if I do this 20 times and the last time I did it differently? What would happen? Stuff like that. You just can't think of it. It takes a special mindset to do QA, I think. And glad to have them around. They're awesome.
So you've been in the 3D industry for a really long time, and even going decades back at Blizzard. So you've kind of seen a progression of video game graphics over time, and just 3D graphics in general. Like, what were some of the more hallmark moments for you? Like, for example, Mario 64, the real first standout 3D platformer. There was other 3D platformers, but that was the one that really wowed people. Like, what were some of those moments for you?
It's a really good question, because I've seen games all the way back to the Commodore 64, Choplifter, games like that. That's a tough one.
How about like Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid, or Splinter Cell, or
like when did I feel like when did I see a big jump, or like what?
Yeah, like when like you looked at this game and it's like, wow, this looks far beyond the other games out there, and this is like really pushing the medium forward. Like for me, I would say one of the moments was Gran Turismo, like one of the first really realistic looking racing games.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know. I think I played a lot of first-person shooters, but before that, I was really into RTS games. And seeing it go from the very early Warcraft days all the way to like StarCraft, World of Warcraft and not World of Warcraft, but Warcraft 3, which it's a little bit different. Red Alert, all those games. Kind of watching that progression has been pretty crazy. I mean, nowadays I saw there's this. What's that game called? It's called Beyond All Recognition. It's like an open source RTS game. Have you heard of that?
I haven't heard of that one.
Interesting.
I was watching a clip of 150 players playing on two sides an RTS, and it was insane watching. Wow. But to see us going from like Red Alert, in the early StarCraft days when you can build these huge armies, and Red Alert, huge armies, Command and Conquer. And then you get into like when Warcraft, Warcraft 3? You had very limited, armies, you had, champions and stuff. It kind of went backwards in my opinion, but then it shifted back. Now you've got these games where, Sins of a Solar Empire, so games like that are huge. You can have hundreds and hundreds of units, and, especially like the space, RTS games now. It's such a difference from where we were back then. I mean, we were always like, oh, I wish I could do this with a Star Destroyer. And then, oh, hey, look, I can do it with a Star Destroyer. Like I've seen things go from me thinking, wow, it'd be so cool to be able to do that, to, hey, look, now I can do that. I'm old, so I got to see the progression of all these things.
Awesome. Happen, Yeah, I mean, you're in a rare situation, rare position where you could, take it from the real basics all the way up until now. And now it's like you're talking about it, it's insane what they can do. These like Unreal Engine.
Yeah. It's fun to watch all of this happen, to see the industry just mature the way it has, and know that it's got a long way to go. We haven't even touched AR. I'm seeing a lot of VR games and some AR games. I think when 3D glasses get like this is when you're going to see that change. Because I want to play StarCraft on my desk, on a kitchen table, on a dining room table with my friends. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Be able to do all this and look around like this. Blah, blah, blah. That's like the next thing for me. That's what I can't wait for. A real RTS where I can play it, in the room. Like I want to put a space station over there, and I want to put like, a castle or whatever, or base over here, and another guy wants to do something over there, and then you have a fight in the room. I want that. I'm sure it'll come one day, but it's not soon enough.
Yeah, it seemed that VR really took off like they expected. I guess, the headsets were big, bulky, expensive. It kind of took you out of the world, but like you're mentioning, AR, you have glasses, you can still look around and you're not like completely withdrawn. I think that would take off more than the flat out VR headsets.
Yeah.
As they get smaller and smaller, the games are going to get more. They're going to be more and more games and more advanced.
I've actually seen like a more recent motorcycle helmet where they're integrating AR into it. So like these different overlays, I think that would be something that would take off.
Yeah, definitely.
So like I know like back in the day, 3D graphics, it was more static, pre-baked lighting, etc. And now we're moving to more dynamic lighting, physics, destructible environments. Like, which one of these elements really have you excited for, visual storytelling and just being immersed in the game, period?
Well, something that you just said, things being destructible, that's something that, we're seeing more and more. I think Battlefield, I haven't played it, but I've heard Battlefield, you can do a lot of destruction in the game and pull buildings down if you want. And, it's always been that little, it breaks the illusion when you go up to something and you shoot it and nothing happens, or you bang on a wall and the wall just is there. You just set off C4 and nothing happened to the chair that's sitting in front of it. Stuff like that. It's like, it takes you out. And you don't want to I want to be able to blow up anything I want, break anything I want, In some cases, it might mess up my game and I can't continue because I blew up something I needed. I don't know. But, I can't wait to see more of that. Like I said, I mean, it sounds like Battlefield, they've been working on it for a while and it's come along. I want to see more of that where you can use the environment to your advantage.
So you want more options, basically.
Always. I want to be able to do whatever I want. I want to do whatever I want to solve whatever the problem is.
I think that's kind of
order, but it'd be nice.
I think that's the difficulty, like you mentioned, of creating these open world destructible games is you could put the game in a breaking state. You kill some NPC that you need to progress the story. But I think with AI, that now that you have this ability to introduce dynamic NPCs, if you destroy something in the world, I guess the story can still keep going because the NPC can react to the environment as is.
You've made it. Yeah, totally. That's an interesting use of AI. It's such a touchy subject right now, and I think from a union standpoint, or for our bargaining, it's more job protection. How can we protect jobs from being lost to AI? How can we make sure that if somebody does use AI, that they're not going to get in trouble because they're being told to use it, or whatever, depending on the situation. Like just recently when Call of Duty came out, everyone was going crazy. It's like, hey, they used AI for that. And it's like, that's not cool. And everyone kind of lost their shit about it. And I don't know. I don't know if I blame them, really. As an artist, I don't want to see people replaced by AI.
Yeah.
I have no problem seeing people use it as a tool. I use it from time to time in my daily life. I use ChatGPT basically as a help file if I'm coding, because I'm not going to remember everything. But if there's something I need, I'm like, hey, how do I do that? Oh yeah, right. And then I go and I do it.
Right.
It's like it just saves me time from actually going and looking in the help file. A lot of times there isn't a help file. Stuff like that.
But the research.
Yeah.
It's great at researching.
I mean, I don't want it to do the work for me. I want to do the work. I want it to help me get from point A to point B whenever I need a little bit of help, maybe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much the common consensus we've heard, from all the different creatives, even programmers, et cetera, is like utilize it as a tool. Don't utilize it as a replacement. Like it can't replace what you do, but
it'll become a crutch.
Exactly.
Because then what happens when you don't have access to it?
Exactly.
You do your job. If you don't know how to do the job without it, then you can't do your job if you lose it.
Exactly.
That's tough.
Yeah.
So, the industry you're in is changing rapidly. So for somebody trying to get in the industry, like what technologies do they really need to stay abreast of, and how do they kind of stay ahead of the curve and not get made obsolete in a few years?
That's such a hard question to answer, to be honest. I think personally, it's really scary right now in the sense that we just don't know what's going on or what's going to happen. AI is good, but it's not great. It can't do jobs perfectly yet, and we're nowhere near that. So you're going to have somebody touch it and fix it, whatever, tweak it. It's just, I don't know. It's just such a scary time to be in this industry. Whether you're coming into it or whether you've been in it for decades, we just don't know what's going to happen. And I think that's one of the main reasons why we're fighting so hard as a union to say, we just want guardrails.
Yeah.
We just want protection. Look, if you want to do this, then you either help people find other jobs within a company, train them to help the AI, or give them a really fat severance so they can go move on and do something else. I don't know. There's all these options on the table. We're just trying to figure out which way we're going to go and how we're going to do it.
Right.
We're not saying no AI. We hate AI. No, forget it. It's like the genie's out of the bottle. You really have no choice at this point. It's like when cars came along and horses were replaced. It's like there was no going back. I think the statistic was in 10 years there were no horses on the roads anymore.
Wow.
It was all cars in the span of 10 years. It's like that's going to happen here, but faster.
Faster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got these people that are talking about having full development teams in one person. It's like that's fine and all, but You know, you still need people to do things. You can't just count on your computer, on your chat, you know, large language model AI friend to do everything that you want it to do. It's not going to understand you. There are going to be problems, and there's no interaction. You know,
that's the problem.
What's going to happen to us, like interacting as human beings, when we're not doing it anymore?
Yeah, how do you come to, you know, a conclusion when you don't know what the process is that the AI is taking to come to the conclusion? So it's
how do you know
very
it's right?
interesting time. Yeah.
You know, how do you know it's right? How do you know when it's making a mistake?
Right.
As you do it more and more, and you use it more and more, and you become a little bit more dependent on it, and then you stop double checking your work or double checking the work of the AI, then you start getting sloppy. It's not your fault, but you start relying on it more. And then when it starts effing up, you don't notice because you've just trusted it. So I think that it's a slippery slope. So people need to be real conscious of that and say, okay, well, this is what I got out of the AI. Let me go double check that. That doesn't sound right. You know what I mean?
Right.
Just use your brain a little bit. You know, and if you have a team of people, you go, hey, does this sound right to you? No. You know, so let's check that. You know,
you get some real feedback from some real humans.
Yeah, and AI is not going to tell you to shut up and go for yourself. You know what I mean? But your coworker might, and you might deserve it and say, oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah. I did that wrong. But then AI is going to be like, oh, well, then let me tell you, you did a great job. You're awesome. It's just going to stroke your ego. And that's the problem right now. We got to get it figured out. I'm sure they will eventually. You know?
I definitely think verification is one of the issues, and two is the legality of, you know, if it's being trained on all of this public artwork and you see like, oh, this really looks like emulation of my artwork, you know, the artist sees that, who knows if they're going to launch lawsuits, you know?
Well, you know, that cartoony look with the thick lines and, you know, the rounded heads and, you know, whatever, that kind of cartoonish look. It's like everything is that now. It's like all the AIs are doing the same thing. And it's like, you're seeing all these brochures with the same characters in it. It's like,
right.
You know, there's no artistic creativity. They're just mimicking what they've seen, and they're all mimicking the same thing. So it's everything the same. You know, I've noticed that with a lot of the AI voiceover stuff on YouTube. You know, it's like all the voices are the same voice, or they're very similar, and it's like, that's not cool. You know, and we're gonna see that until they finally, you know, until it matures more. I don't know how many years we are from that, but probably not very far, you know.
You know, I think people are going to really seek out more and more authentic and human experiences because, like you mentioned, you go on YouTube, you start listening to this stuff, and you can start telling this AI slop, like the voice sounds a certain way, or just talks, you know, brings up these points in a certain way. Like you know, there's different tells, and you know, when people hear it, they're like, I don't want to hear this.
I think in the future, there's going to be a niche market for people that don't want anything AI. You know, you'll have a movie that comes out that's clearly just not AI. And, you know, I think people will be drawn more to it maybe because everything else is AI and obviously AI.
Yeah.
And something comes along that's completely created by creatives, you know, and just it's got a different feel to it, and people will pay more to see that.
Yeah, that makes me.
Will happen. We'll have that kind of niche.
It makes me think of, you know, in music, you had in the 80s the drum machine.
Yes,
the drum machine came out, and I'm a drummer. Drummers at the time, they were worried. Okay, is this thing going to replace us? You know, our live show is going to be done with drum machines. What's going to happen?
Right.
And really what ended up happening is a lot of the drum machines started to be used in recording sessions, but they weren't necessarily used live because the fact of the matter is, you know, if people go out for a live show, they want, you know, humans playing the music. Right. They don't want, you know, you don't go see, you know, Mariah Carey and then, you know, expect her to lip sync or something like that. You know, you want,
I was just thinking that.
You want the real deal. So I think, in music, we've had that happen already, and maybe it's going to happen again now with AI, but in a totally new way, in a totally different way.
Yeah. Like all these, classic rap songs being done in classic soul. And they actually sound pretty amazing, but it's like, it's AI. And a lot of the voices, again, sound very similar.
Yeah.
Like all the male voices sound the same.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can see where it's going. It's just not there yet.
I've actually seen a news story about like a AI R&B artist, like some woman created her, and they gave that woman that created the AI artist like a multi-million-dollar contract, and I don't know. That's kind of insane to me. Like people are listening and watching this thing that doesn't exist, and even getting attached to it. But,
yeah, they're getting emotion from it. Like they're feeling something from it, and it's surprising. I think it's like every once in a while you'll get a good hit. You'll get a song done with AI that actually sounds really good and affects you, and you're like, "Damn it, should I like this? I don't know if I should like this."
Yeah, right. Okay.
You know what I mean?
No, it's pretty amazing because like in the late 90s, 2000s, you have the GPS that had the obvious like robotic voice, like turn left. But now AI, some of the stuff, like it's really hard to tell that this is AI. It sounds human. Like they have this more recent AI company. I think it's Sesame AI. I think it's called Miles. I don't know if you heard of that, but it sounds like really human.
Yeah. I've heard a couple of those that have sounded great. And it's crazy how fast. I mean, it was only like a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, that we were watching Will Smith eating spaghetti.
Yeah.
And his hands were blending into his face, whatever. And now it's like I don't know if you've seen those Bigfoot vlogs, but they're not bad. And there's obvious little hiccups here and there, but I mean, overall, they're like, that's Bigfoot. I mean, he's actually talking to me. It's the weirdest thing. They do the same thing with the stormtroopers and whatever. But we've come a long way in just such a really short time. And it's like it's amazing to see. And now we're starting to deal with the repercussions of all the data centers. And now none of us use graphics cards anymore or RAM. And it's like, what about the rest of us? We want to still play games and do work. Like I bought an extra 64 gig of RAM for my machine right before all this stuff happened. I'm like, thank God I did that.
Right.
So it's like it's crazy. It's a crazy time to be in any industry right now.
Like you said, they're just building out all these data centers all over the place. They're dumping billions, if not trillions of dollars into AI. So like you said, there is no going back. That's out the window. That's not going to happen. But there's going to be nuance. There's going to be, certain specialized areas that AI will take you. But I think, right now it's kind of like a hodgepodge. It's just like everything, thrown into the soup. And it's not necessarily real clear and concise in the way that us humans might want it to be.
Agreed.
And, just at the rate that things are progressing in a lot of ways, AI's quote unquote intelligence is going to far surpass that of humanity. And, obviously there's a lot of apocalyptic scenarios that you can run into. And, looking at your background, 2012, that was, kind of like the doomsday. So like, do you think that us continuing to go down this path of explosive growth with AI is a smart move, or should we pump the brakes and see if we can contain this, like not get to that point where we create something that we can't control?
We're in a Cold War right now. There's no going back. There's no slowing down. Because if we slow down, they're not going to slow down.
Yeah.
Right.
No one's gonna be able to stop any part of this. That's the sad thing. That's the thing that we need to protect from. Like, for example, let's just say China, right? Let's say we back up, we put up all these guardrails and we, hamper development of AI here. They're not going to stop.
Yeah.
Russia's not going to stop. China, so any other country, they're not going to stop. They're going to go as hard and as fast as they can. So like I said, we're in a Cold War. there is no pumping the brakes. There is no slowing down. It's just how do we get there faster than the other guy to protect ourselves? At some point, someone's going to develop an AI that takes out other AIs. It's just simple. It's going to happen. There's always going to be that. And so you need to protect against that. If you have an AI that's running your entire city's infrastructure and someone designs an AI that goes and hunts out other AIs and destroys them, you got to be against it. I know it sounds sci-fi and it's nuts, but I mean, things happen. Things can actually,
like Boba Fett.
What happened? You know what I mean?
Like Hitman, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just talking.
Bounty hunters.
Yeah. But yeah, we just have to keep going and just make it work for us and not make us work for them. It's like I said, it's a crazy time, but I don't think we should be afraid of it. We should just learn to adapt to it and use it, and kind of keep people honest. If somebody's using it and they're like, "Oh no, I did all this," and it's like,
no, you didn't.
Really, all by yourself, huh? So, yeah, that's the kind of thing we need to watch too.
Well, like you mentioned before, people are trying to take one AI chatbot and use it as, the developer for an entire full stack application that's fully built out. If I don't know what they can do as of today, but I think we are going to get to the point where it looks pretty good. Someone just types up different prompts. Okay, I want this type of game. I want these type of enemies, and it'll spit out something that looks pretty believable. But I think right now we're in that unique time where it's not quite there yet. So this is really the time to, say, okay, we're going to have only humans work on this one thing over here.
Yeah.
We're only going to have humans do X, Y, and Z. I think we need to figure that out right now and then kind of move forward after that point.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that there's no going back from any of this. So whatever it takes, that's what we got to do.
I think the interesting thing about AI is kind of like maybe the movie The Matrix, where this AI gets so powerful that they can just completely, continuously generate a false reality from us. Like, we're constantly tethered to screens, and if it could generate worlds in real time and it's constantly feeding us this, like, let's just say it's generating news on the fly, it's just feeding us false news. Like, we don't really know.
Yeah.
So I mean.
Yeah, no, I looking at The Matrix, and it's like, or I was just watching Ready Player One the other day. I rewatched it again, and it's like you kind of look forward to like the day that we can go in to a virtual world and exist there and play. And it's like, are you gonna want to leave?
Yeah,
we're gonna want to come out of there and live life. So it's like, I think. Just recently, I think Australia that said that kids under X amount of age can't play with any digital devices or something. And it's like,
wow,
that's a good idea.
That's great.
Because I think they found that really young children that play with electronics like iPads and stuff like that are growing up to be way more anxious, way less prepared to deal with any problems in their life. And I think that's something we really need to be conscious of. If we do have AIs, I don't think kids should ever be able to do anything with them until they're a little older.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and there's been already cases of suicide, basically suicide by AI. I remember this one story. The AI, I forget which chatbot it was, but it basically told the kid, "Hey, come join with me, come join me, come be with me." So the kid, not really knowing reality, takes his dad's gun, shoots himself, thinking that, okay, once I'm dead here, I'm gonna go and exist with this chatbot in this other dimension. But that's not what happened. The kid just killed himself, and now there's a lawsuit. So we're starting to see some of that stuff happen, and you would think it would make companies pump the brakes, but like you said, no pumping the brakes, because China is going to keep going. Russia, North Korea, these superpowers. They're not going to stop. They're probably not really going to even put safeguards on a lot of this stuff, unfortunately, and just like blow past it,
Yep. And we have to be ready for that. And the funny thing is eventually I think they're going to be really good at, like, right now, I think the way AI is, it's kind of existing. It's not really like they're not really putting any effort to optimize anything, it feels like. So that's why they need all these data centers, all these GPUs, all this RAM. And I'll bet you within the next 5 years, somebody's going to develop an AI that runs on, an eighth of whatever everything's using right now.
Right.
All these AIs and data centers are just going to be sitting idle because they won't need them. So these guys are spending all this money right now, and it's going to get wasted.
And I think we also have to try to figure out what the possible intentions of this AI is going to be, because let's just say we build all of these robot factories and AI is taking that over, and it gets to the point where it can build more robots and
Right.
spread to more systems
and upgrade.
Yeah, exactly. Like at that point, you can't stop it, and you're at the mercy. You better hope it's benevolent, because if it's not.
See, that's the thing. And people are like, yeah, well, we're training all these AIs. And I'm like, yeah, what are you training it on? Oh, the internet, and just whatever we can find. It's just training anything. And it ends up training on other AIs training. And so it just gets muddled, or, it's training on white supremacists talking, or crap like that, hate.
Yeah, hate.
That stuff too.
It's taking that in.
Yeah. And we're the guardrails on that.
Right.
I don't want my AI to know what an SS guard was, or in history maybe, but let's just a racist, some sort of racist thing.
Yeah. Right.
I don't want my AI to be a racist. I want my AI to just be smart. I don't want it to be, judging me on what I look like, or if I'm a man or a woman or whatever.
Right.
And that's the problem. There's a bias in media, in the world, in our information, and the AI is learning that bias. It's like, how do you stop that? How do you teach it not to learn the bias? That's tough. I don't know how they're going to do it.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if they're going to be able to do that. I mean, they should work on it, but like we're talking about, the rails are off. They're just going full steam ahead. They don't really, kids are committing suicide, talking to chatbots like that. Those stories are being buried, and they just keep on rolling. Let's just make this more powerful, faster, optimize it, etc.
All we're saying is, put some thought into how it's learning, what it's learning. Not everything needs to be part of the large language model. Not everything needs to be taken into account. Like there are things that you probably just don't want it to learn. And how do you put guardrails on it? I think that's just the thing we need to protect ourselves from. I don't know how we're going to do it, but there's smarter people than us out there, I'm sure, doing that.
They've had a situation where two AIs were talking to each other, and then it started speaking in its own language. So at that point, it's communicating with other AIs, and you can't monitor what it's doing because it's speaking this unique language.
Right.
Yep.
That's when it becomes really dangerous.
Yeah, it's really crazy. We're seeing a lot of the stuff that we thought about in science fiction for decades, and some of it's happening.
Yeah, some of it's happening.
And we want the good stuff to happen, not the bad stuff. So it's like, how do we steer it to the good stuff and get rid of the bad stuff? And it's like, oh boy.
Yeah, like we want to try to avoid Skynet coming online and killing everyone. Obviously we want to try to avoid that. But if we're going so fast, there's not really any checks and balances, any safety precautions. I don't know. We're probably going to see some really wild stuff over the next 10, 15 years, 20 years.
I agree.
It's going to be interesting at minimum.
Oh yeah. I'm all for it. I want to see everything that happens. I hope I live a longer life, so I want to see what happens.
What does a UI? I mean, a utopia with AI or tech, what does that actually look like? Like how you envision it? Like what would be the ideal scenario?
Well, I mean, if you had an AI that could run things, better than us, let's say, could things be optimized to the point where nobody has to work anymore? There's a good possibility there. Could we see a future where it's not about how much money you make, it's about what you create? Could there be a day where, the more artistic you are, the more popular you are, rather than the more rich you are, the more popular you are?
Right.
You can't look at the Star Trek model future, of the future, not the far future, but the medium future, where everybody's kind of like, you know what, money doesn't mean shit. We can all get whatever we want anytime we want. So then what's next? How smart you are, how artistic you are, how creative you are. All the other things that make us human are what become important. Not just how much time do I have to offer for you to pay me to do my job. Because that's all it seems like we do these days. We're working and working and working, and then we drop dead and we never got to enjoy anything.
100%.
But when you can get AIs in there, when you can develop an AI that can, fulfill our needs in a sense, find a new way to make, protein that's completely, you can do it anywhere and no more hunger in the world ever. We can, if they ever come up with a way to make, a replicator, I mean, that's just the word, but, or a 3D printer that can print, food, then
Right.
if there's no need, what's next? Can we just do whatever we want? Make art, make cool things, go explore the world, the universe, whatever. There's good positives that could come out of it. It's just a matter of which way we're going to go.
Yeah, what path are we going to go down? I think I think at this time, people think, oh, let's look to Elon Musk. Let's look to what is his vision. But that guy's kind of out of his mind. You're really going to follow that guy?
He shot himself in the foot and he went after his customers. He basically targeted his own customers and said, "You guys are losers." And oh my God, nobody's buying his cars anymore. How shocking!
Yeah, right.
And it's going to happen when you tell all of your customers that they're, un-American and crazy people and blah blah blah, whatever he's spouting. It's no shock.
Yeah.
He went from being this guy that everybody looked at, he's so smart, he's putting so many things together, but to this pariah. It's like a lot of these guys like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, they're just guys that know how to pick who to do the work. It's not like they're that smart. They didn't do all the work. Nobody becomes a self-made billionaire.
Yeah.
Everyone was made on the backs of other people. You could become a self-made millionaire. I could see that. You bust your ass, you build a business and there's enough profit that you can save every month. And eventually, you have $1 million. Nobody does that with $1 billion. Nobody can make $1 billion. I mean, aside from like stock trading or something like that.
Sure.
You're not going to do it unless you have other people that you're taking advantage of underneath you. Now, if everybody that works under you has a mansion and a great car and their kids are paid, going to college and everything's paid for, okay, then yeah. But none of them are doing that. They're all keeping all that money and we're all, left fighting for the scraps. And it's like, how much longer can it go like this? It can't.
Right. Is that, I guess the big question is, will that ever change?
It has to. Because
you would think it has to, right? Yeah.
I think what we will see if it doesn't is the French Revolution. You're going to keep pushing people down. You're going to keep standing on their necks. They're not going to take it for very long. This poor woman that got shot in the face, Minneapolis, that state is done. They're finished, and I don't blame them, and if that happened to my child, I'd go on a rampage, and I don't blame them if they do. Yeah. I mean, the big thing here is, as long as everybody doesn't, I guess what I'm trying to say is at some point, things are going to break. People are going to be tired of being stepped on. You're going to have 3 people that have all the money in the whole country, And the rest of us are going to finally say, you know what, we're done. And people will start rising up, and it will happen if they don't get this under control. If people don't start feeling like their voices are heard. I'm sorry we ended up going political. I apologize. I'm just feeding into the AI thing. So I'll stop. But I'm just saying, you know, it's like we gotta stop being taken advantage of. We have to stand up for ourselves. And if you keep pushing people, they will push back. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope we solve this problem before that happens. And I think we will. I'm an optimist. And I think we're just going through a bad period. And I think when the pendulum swings the other way, things will start getting better for everybody. I mean, fingers crossed.
You know, realistically, with AI and robotics, you can create a situation where everybody has a house. You're just using these AI-powered robots to build everybody a house. But you know, even with food, we have the technology to feed everybody, but it's artificially induced scarcity so that this elite has control over everybody else.
Yeah.
Like, how do we?
Yes.
The question.
How do we change that? Yeah, right. How do we change that? I don't know.
How do we stop the haves from taking advantage of the have-nots? You know, society can't survive like that. Civilization cannot continue like this. Eventually, it's going to fall apart. You know, all these lower birth rates. Why do you think we're having this birth rate problem? Nobody wants to have kids.
Yep.
Too expensive. You know. Yep. Why would you want to bring a person into this world if you don't have your own house, you don't have a stable job, you can barely afford to feed yourself, you know? So now we're seeing, you know, populations plummet all over the world, you know?
Yeah.
That needs to change. How? I don't know, but it needs to change. You know,
oh, yeah,
it's just rough. You know, I'm tired of always having to fight for everything.
Work,
work,
and then you're dead.
For less and less and less.
Less and less,
yeah.
That's right.
So,
by the time you can, quote unquote, retire and have free time to do stuff, you're already like too old, and all of that's going into medical bills and medicine.
By the time you can get the vet, you can barely get in and out of it because your back hurts so bad.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, why couldn't I get this when I was 20 and I could enjoy it? Because, you know, I'm too busy working my butt off. You know, it's crazy, but I don't know. It's watching this industry go from where it was to where it is, and you know, looking forward to where it's gonna go. You know, kids. You know, people ask me, "Well, what do I do to get into this?" And I honestly draw a blank.
Yeah,
like I kind of want to say, you know what? Don't go find something else.
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of like my gut reaction, but it's like I don't want to stomp on someone's love. So you try to give them the best advice you can. It's like, learn as much as you can.
Yeah, be ready
to online. You don't have to spend money to learn how to do this work. You could go on YouTube. There's so much stuff out there
free
to teach for free.
Yeah.
You know, that like when I started in CG, there were no schools really. You know, I went to Columbia College in Chicago for a semester. And this was like their first year. It was like really early on. So I did a semester and I was like, I felt like I knew more than the instructor. So I stopped and I just started in the industry, you know, and what did I do? I just looked at the tutorials and I did them. I did all the tutorials and then I started doing stuff I wanted to do and learning as I went. You can do the same thing now. It's even easier because, you know, YouTube, everyone wants to share how they do things, which I love about YouTube. You know, it's not just the monetary aspect of it for them. They want to share. They want to teach. I know people that have pages up. You know, they don't make very much, but they love the fact that they can spread their knowledge to other people.
They can affect people in a real way.
Yes, you know, bringing people up instead of like stomping them down.
Yeah.
You know, like one of the things in my career that I've always had, I've always been very open with what I do and how I do things, and sharing my knowledge. You know, if anybody ever asks, "Hey, how do I rig this character?" Sit down, I'll show you. You know, it's never like, this is my secret. This is how I do things. I'm not going to share it because that's job security. It's like, yeah, shut up. You know, there's no such thing as job security if you're like that. You're going to get fired because you're a dick.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're sharing your knowledge with people, they respect you, they'll want to come.